I've been frail and sickly since I was a young child. My body was always delicate and riddled with various ailments. I lacked any real vitality or spirit throughout my life. If one were to describe me as a complete waste or a useless person, I was perfectly suited for the role and could accept it with a clear conscience. However, everything changed on that specific day. I unexpectedly received a short video clip on my phone. In the video, my fiancée was passionately embracing and kissing another man. I was absolutely livid the moment I saw it. I immediately ordered that innocent and beautiful maid to move directly into my master bedroom suite. I gave the order for her to take up residence there. I told them to throw every single one of Sophia's belongings out of the house. A girl dressed in very simple and clean clothes suddenly entered the room. Her hair was styled in a single braid draped over her shoulder. I looked at her and asked who she was. The butler replied to me with the utmost respect. "Sir, this is the bride that Mr. Miller found for you. He said this marriage ceremony is intended to bring you good fortune and health. It is said that she can take the place of Miss Sophia." The girl who was standing by the doorway wore a very plain white dress. She was holding a bulging blue woven bag in her hand. Even so, she stood perfectly straight and tall. Her figure was slender, and her movements were quite elegant. She looked impeccably clean from head to toe. Even her worn-out canvas sneakers had been scrubbed until they were white and showed a faded sort of cleanliness. The butler continued with the introduction. "Sir, this is Ava, whom we brought back from Clearwater, Tennessee. Mr. Miller has already completed all the paperwork for her school transfer. She will be attending school with you starting tomorrow." I took a long look at this unfamiliar girl named Ava. Her facial features were soft and very delicate. Her eyes were remarkably clear and bright. Although she was not wearing any makeup at all, her fresh and understated beauty was impossible to hide. She smiled and asked one of the nearby servants a question. Once she was sure she would not get the floor dirty, she finally stepped inside to change her shoes. Her eyes crinkled into a smile that brightened her whole face. When she smiled, the corners of her eyes tilted upward slightly. It somehow reminded me of a cold soda filled with ice on a hot summer day. The bubbles fizzed up, making the drink look refreshing and icy. It felt like something that could quench thirst and refresh the spirit all at once. I frowned and noted that she was the one my mother had brought home. However, I wondered if she could truly replace Sophia. Sophia and I had been betrothed to each other since we were children. On paper, she was officially my fiancée. In reality, my family had been desperate at that time. They had consulted a spiritual advisor for guidance. He claimed that she was the lucky charm who would save my life. I have struggled with poor health since the day I was born. I was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect. I was told that I could pass away at any given moment. The advisor said that Ava's destiny was perfectly compatible with my own. As long as her life was intertwined with mine, she would be able to prolong my existence. The Miller family provided Sophia's family with a significant amount of money. Consequently, Sophia was sent to live with us as the bride who was supposed to bring me good luck. The butler chose his words very carefully. He spoke in a very cautious manner. Mr. Miller's intention is that Ava can take the place that Miss Sophia once held. The two situations do not necessarily conflict with one another. That is, if you still happen to care for Miss Sophia. I was too exhausted to even lift my eyelids to look at him. Just thinking about Sophia being in the classroom and kissing her desk mate made me feel sick. A wave of absolute disgust and nausea immediately rose in my chest. The young girl downstairs seemed to notice that I was watching her. She tilted her head up to look at me. The very moment our eyes met, she seemed to freeze for a brief second. I looked down at her from my position on the upper floor. I saw her nervously set her woven bag down on the floor. She gave me a very deep and respectful bow. Then she stood up straight and gave me a bright smile. It was as if spring had suddenly bloomed across a green field. Everything about her seemed full of life and fresh energy. The irritation that had been stuck in my throat was easily dissolved by her presence without me even realizing it. Ava had originally been assigned to the maids' quarters on the first floor. I spoke up and told them to move her to the room next to mine. I also instructed them to bring her to see me once the room was ready. The room next door had previously belonged to Sophia. The butler quickly stepped forward to support me. He asked me in a very careful tone, "Sir, what should we do with Miss Sophia's belongings?" I gave a very brief and calm reply. "Just throw everything away." My voice was flat and showed no emotion at all. Now that I have a replacement for her, the Miller family has absolutely no further need for her. Ava had not brought very many things with her. The butler informed me of her request. As soon as she had put her bags down, she asked if she could go wash herself up first. It probably was not even a proper bath. She had likely just rinsed herself off quickly with cold water. Droplets of water were still clinging to the ends of her hair. She was shivering slightly when she came out of the bathroom. Ava had changed into a set of what she called new clothes. They were called new, but they were actually quite worn out. However, it was clear that this was the most presentable outfit she owned. At least there were no visible patches on the fabric. You could tell with just a single glance that this was her best effort to prepare herself properly before our meeting. She carried the faint and pleasant scent of soap. The scent was simple, clean, and very natural. Her English was not exactly perfect. After making a conscious effort to adjust her tone, she gave me a very solemn and formal greeting. "Benefactor, I have finally been able to meet you." Her eyes looked like the clear water of a lake. They were bright and clear, without a single speck of dust. When the sunlight hit them, it felt as though everything was being purified. She looked at me with an incredible amount of devotion and focus. It was as if she were looking at a sacred statue in a church. "Benefactor," I said in a very calm voice, "you were simply sold to the Miller family, that is all." The meaning behind my words was quite simple. From this moment until the day I take my final breath, she would be deprived of her personal freedom. She would be forced to stay by my side forever. In this regard, there was no difference between her and Sophia. My response seemed to catch Ava off guard for a second. However, just a few seconds later, she spoke in a very soft voice. "But I'm not worth nearly that much money." Her words sounded extremely self-deprecating, yet there was not a single trace of self-pity on her face. Ava gave me another one of her smiles. Her eyebrows curved gracefully. The corners of her eyes tilted up a little. Her smile was completely full of youthful energy and life. In the photograph from her official file, she was smiling in the exact same way. She looked clean and very sweet. It felt as though her smile could make the entire world brighter. She began to speak to me. "You're the one who built that school. You made it possible for me to continue my education. You were the one who saved my younger sister's life. You paid for medical bills that we could never have afford in our lives. You are the one who took me away from Clearwater. You allowed me to see the world outside of my small town. I saw things that I never even dared to dream about. I honestly never imagined that I would ever have the chance to meet you in person." Ava crouched down on the floor. She looked up at me from below. Her voice was so serious that it was almost solemn. "Out of all the people in the world, having been chosen by you and being bought by your family is the greatest blessing of my life." She appeared to be very obedient and gentle. She was like a little kitten waiting for someone to pet her head. I frowned slightly at her. I found myself feeling a bit confused. Her life had been so difficult. She had been trapped in misery with no way out. How could she still manage to smile so happily? I had previously looked through Ava's background file. There were only a few brief lines of text. They roughly outlined the hidden pain of her early life. Her family was so poor they could barely afford to eat. Her parents had left to find work and never came back. She was raised entirely by her grandfather. The old man had worked himself to exhaustion. He collapsed 2 years ago and never recovered. Ava was forced to drop out of school. She spent her time caring for her gravely ill sister. She also took on whatever odd job she could find. All of it was just to earn money for medicine. Later on, my mother traveled to Clearwater. My mother was there to work on charitable investments. She built a charity school in my name. That was where she first discovered Ava. Over the years, my parents had worked themselves to the bone. One searched the world for the best medical teams to treat me. The other traveled constantly to manage various charity projects for me. My parents were not at all superstitious at the beginning. They were not the kind of people who believed in such things. But when human effort failed to change the harsh reality, when I was unconscious in the ICU for the first time, and every doctor in the world felt completely helpless, they began to seek help from higher powers. They began visiting churches and seeking spiritual guidance. They tried desperately to do good works to earn favor. They only hoped that those good deeds would somehow benefit my health. As time went on, they began to believe in more mystical explanations. They even consulted with a spiritual master. They eventually accepted the idea of a predestined marriage. They searched everywhere for the person whose destiny was meant to be with mine. The method for matching destinies was incredibly complicated. There were only a very few people who met the criteria. Over the course of many years, I have only ever encountered two such people. Sophia was the first one, and Ava was the second. When it comes down to it, I do not personally believe in this kind of lucky marriage. These kinds of mysterious and vague concepts cannot possibly cure a medical illness. Even modern medicine was unable to help me. How could a complete stranger whom I had never met possibly bring me any real good luck? My body is destined to give out sooner or later. I just did not want to disappoint my parents. So I allowed Ava to remain by my side. I tacitly accepted the terms of the marriage contract. Those memories were not at all comforting. The tears that constantly filled my parents' eyes, happening one after another, struck my heart with the force of a heavy storm. However, I was forced to take that suffering and wretched version of myself and lock it deep inside my heart without letting it show. I did this so that those overwhelming emotions would not completely destroy my already fragile body. I accepted a long time ago that I'm going to die eventually. Yet the human heart is greedy after all. I still find myself wanting to live a little longer, at least enough to spend more time with my parents. Because of that, the person they see standing before them is always the same cold and detached James. I told her that I understood. Then I looked at Ava and added one more thing. You do not need to call me your benefactor from now on. And please stop being so formal with me. She bit her lip nervously. She looked up and asked me a question. Can I just call you James, then? I waved my hand dismissively. Whatever you want to do. Ava looked as if she had just received a very precious gift. She was just about to say something else when a sudden gust of wind blew past us. She quickly pulled back and turned her head away to sneeze. Now she finally seemed a bit embarrassed. I am sorry, James. I took a quick look at her hair, which was still damp. You just rinsed off with cold water, did you not? She quietly admitted that she had. I was thinking about meeting you, James. I did not want to be disrespectful. I was worried. I cut her off mid-sentence. You do not know how to turn on the hot water, do you? She gave me a very serious nod. I told her what to do. Go and dry your hair first. Then have the butler show you how to use the water heater. She looked at me with eyes full of expectation. I paused for a couple of seconds. I eventually changed my mind and muttered something else. Never mind, just come with me. I began to show Ava how to use some of the basic things in the room. She was a very attentive learner. After a little while, her gaze landed on a few small chairs in the corner. Her expression shifted slightly, as if she were considering something. I asked her what she was thinking. What is the matter? She spoke with a very serious tone. These chairs are not suitable for you. They are far too small. I think that in this room, we should place a wider chair for you, James. Something that would be comfortable for you to sit in. That way, when you come over here, you can have a proper place to rest. I stopped for a moment. This room had originally belonged to Sophia. She always had a preference for small and delicate furniture. I, on the other hand, almost never set foot in here. At that exact moment, my phone vibrated with a message from Sophia. She wrote that she would be staying at her own house tonight. Then she gave me a brief update. I already told Ethan, and he is going to pick me up tomorrow morning. Ethan worked as my driver and my personal assistant. I only then remembered that an hour ago, I had still planned on going to find Sophia. I wanted to ask her about the relationship between her and her desk mate. I want to know exactly what those words meant. Let's keep our relationship a secret for now. James cannot find out about this. Do not worry, I will not let him touch me. But from this point on, the Miller family has no more use for her. Starting from this very moment, she is going to become a total stranger who has no connection to me. I did not respond to her text message. I simply sent a short text to Ethan. The butler has already sent out the formal notice. All of Sophia's privileges within the Miller family have been revoked. She is no longer permitted to step foot inside this house. I added one final instruction. From this day forward, do not go to pick up Sophia anymore. Then I turned my head to speak to Ava. This is your room now. If there is anything you want to change, just speak directly with the butler. Instead of agreeing, she asked me a question. Well, can I come and ask you instead? I was somewhat confused by her request. Why would you ask me? She gave me a very serious answer. Because that chair is going to be for you to sit in. Therefore, we should choose something that James likes. My voice was very cold when I replied. Do whatever you want. But Ava just smiled at me again. The corners of her lips lifted gently. Her smile was very bright and clean. She looked like she had just stumbled upon something wonderful. She must have already memorized my daily schedule. She took just one look at the clock on the wall and knew it was time for me to go rest. So she spoke to me in an obedient way. I will see you tomorrow, James. Yes. I paused for a moment and then added one more thing. See you tomorrow. That particular memory was not at all pleasant. That night, I had a dream about Sophia when she was a child. Sophia had grown up in our home since she was little. The room right next to mine belonged to her. She could come to the Miller estate whenever she pleased. She could also go back to her own home whenever she wanted. Because I was the patient in the house, her daily living expenses and lifestyle were always provided at the highest possible standard. The Miller family only had one single requirement for her. She had to stay with me and keep me happy. She was supposed to make sure I never got angry. As expected, she was required to stay by my side constantly. This was meant to continue until the day I died. She was even expected to marry me. We grew up together over the years. We attended the same school for our entire education. We even sat in the same classroom. We were childhood sweethearts for almost 10 years. Her academic performance was always excellent. She was also exceptionally beautiful. A life of extreme luxury and wealth had given her an innate sense of elegance and nobility. She was like a rare flower blooming on a high, snowy mountain. Sophia had a somewhat cold personality. She always kept her emotions very tightly controlled. In everything she did, she always carried a subtle sense of pride. It was only when she was with me that her pride would soften just a little bit. Even though that was the case, she was only doing what the Miller family required of her. She never gave any more effort than what was necessary. Our relationship had always been very dull. It was as bland as a glass of plain water. When the weather happened to be nice, she would go for a walk with me. When we went to the library, she would pick out a book she liked and hand it to me. During our meals, she would help me order one or two of the dishes that I usually ate. That was where her effort ended. We almost never had any real conversations. When we were younger, Sophia might have actually worried about how to please me. However, once she discovered that my emotions were always very stable and that I rarely ever got truly angry, she learned a much easier way to live her life. She no longer put any effort into trying to please me. She also did not spend much time talking to me about anything. As far as she was concerned, I had gradually become an invisible shackle for her. No matter how hard she struggled, she could not break free. At the time, I did not think there was anything wrong with that. My body was simply not able to handle any emotions that were too intense or strong. Excitement, anger, intense pain, or sadness. All of these things were things that I could not afford to feel. I was far too fragile for that. Therefore, no one ever dared to truly get close to me. No one wanted to take on the responsibility of the risk that I might get hurt. I had long ago become accustomed to Sophia's presence and company. I also tolerated the natural pride that she carried. The occasional condescension that she showed was not enough to make me angry. In my eyes, she was mostly just a tool that provided my parents with some psychological comfort. But in the end, I'm also a human being with real feelings. After 10 years of being together day and night, I had allowed the small amount of emotion I had to be invested in Sophia. Ethan was a student who had gotten into the school through a special program. He came from a poor family and had a very timid personality. Even when he was bullied by other students, he did not have the courage to fight back. Yet, despite being that kind of person, he seemed to have an endless amount of energy and positivity. Even after being rejected time and time again, he would still be smiling happily. He would ask his classmates if they wanted to play ball with him. He would take the initiative to run for class president. He would sign up for all kinds of school activities. He could stand on a stage and sing at the top of his lungs. He was the exact opposite of me. He was healthy, lively, and vibrant. It was also at that time that I first realized that Sophia actually had so many things to say. She would carefully ask about other people's likes and dislikes. She would take the initiative to cook meals for others. She would be genuinely moved by receiving a gift. She was no longer being picky and demanding. Therefore, everything that was happening between her and Ethan had been laid out clearly before my eyes for a long time. They even took a recording of the two of them after evening study, kissing in the hallway, and sent it to me. I received the surveillance footage directly. In the video, Ethan said with a look of pain on his face, "This is just too cruel. Why does James insist on keeping you tied to his side? You already have so little freedom." Sophia remained silent for a short while. Then she spoke in a low voice. "His health is very poor. We have to keep this a secret from him for now, Ethan. Do not worry, I will not let him touch me." She added one more sentence. "Anyway, I have endured everything so far. It does not matter if I have to wait a little longer. Once he passes away, we will finally be free." After saying that, they cuddled together once more. They were being very intimate and affectionate. They acted like a pair of tragic lovers whom I had torn apart. I would not exactly say that I felt angry. Once that kind of emotion begins to rise, it only makes it difficult for me to breathe. I was just a little bit curious about it. I wanted to ask her directly for herself. What exactly does she mean by being wronged? And who is it that caused her to feel so wronged? While we were at school, Ava walked into the classroom with me. The entire class froze for a moment when they saw us. Then looks of surprise and total disbelief spread across the room like ripples in water. Whispers began to rise from every corner of the room. Someone asked in a very low voice, "Who is that girl? I have never seen her before." Another student replied to the question, "That is strange. Why is it not Sophia?" One of the students muttered something under their breath. "Has the Miller family replaced her with someone else?" A girl spoke up with a very bitter tone. "Wow, why is it never my turn for something good like that? I blame my mother for not giving birth to me a luckier time." Another girl asked, as if she were raising her hand in class, "Do you think I could give it a try? I would be more than happy to be young Master James's lucky charm." Another person started to laugh. "I would really love to see the look on Sophia's face. This is great. It looks like James is finally tired of her." In the beginning, Ava was clearly feeling a bit nervous. It was understandable since almost every eye in the class was fixed directly on her. However, she very quickly regained her composure. She spoke to me directly. "I'm going to study very hard." I gave her a quick look, but did not say anything. She then added another serious comment. "I want to be the top student in the class. I will never do anything to embarrass the Miller family." Her voice was as sincere as if she were taking a holy vow. I found that I had nothing to say in response. She walked over to my desk. She began to help me organize my things on the desk. She wiped the desk from top to bottom over and over again. She continued until the surface of the desk was shining brightly. The butler told me about her actions. After I went to my room to rest last night, Ava helped the butler mop the floors until they were clean. She also spent time helping the gardener water the flowers. Then she went for a jog around the courtyard. As she ran, she was quietly reciting English vocabulary words. She even carried a small notebook with her. She was carefully writing things down in it. I happened to catch a quick glimpse of it. I saw that everything written inside was about me. It noted how long I usually nap for. It noted what time I usually go for a walk. It noted what kind of books I like to read in the library. It noted which breakfasts I prefer when I have to take my medicine. On just a single page, she had densely packed all of these small details about me. She got up before the sun was even out today. First, she went for her morning run. Then she took a quick shower to freshen up. After that, she began to read and study her lessons. In the middle of it, she even went to the kitchen. She helped the chef prepare the breakfast for everyone. The little pastry that was on my plate today was a very delicate and fine treat. She had actually made it with her own hands. I wondered how one person's energy could truly be so endless. I asked her because I was confused. Are you not tired at all? She shook her head in response. No, I'm not tired, she said. Then she poured a cup of hot water for me. She looked up at me and spoke with a smile. I really enjoyed doing these kinds of things. I have seen far too many people tell lies. They wear one mask after another to hide themselves. They are flattering, hypocritical, and full of fake kindness. They say beautiful and kind things with their mouths. Sophia was also one of those people. Sometimes, the concern that Sophia showed me felt very forced and deliberate. It was always mixed with the dissatisfaction and resentment she tried to hide. I was able to see through all of it very clearly, but I was too lazy to ever point it out. I did not even have the extra energy to spare to care about what was truly going on deep inside their minds. All of those things hidden under the surface simply did not matter to me. I did not plan to make an issue of it either. However, I have never met anyone quite like Ava before. She was like the gentle spring rain in the mountains. She was completely untainted by the pollution of the city. Her heart had not been hardened by life's cold and difficult moments. She did not try to hide her lack of knowledge from me. She did not feel any shame about it either. She was very open and did not hide anything. Everything that she said to me sounded like the honest truth. The school bell rang to start the class. A girl's voice was heard from the doorway. "Excuse me, may I come in?" It was Sophia, who had finally arrived late to the classroom. Ethan was following right behind her. She looked a little bit disheveled. Sophia's breathing was still a bit erratic. Her chest was rising and falling quite heavily. However, the very first place she looked was not at me. Instead, her gaze landed on Ava, who was sitting next to me. She was completely stunned. A moment of confusion and bewilderment flashed across her face. It was quickly followed by irritation and anger. But she quickly pushed those feelings down. In the end, she just sat down at her desk with a gloomy expression. Even though Ethan, who was right next to her, smiled at her in a way meant to please her, she acted as if she did not even see him. She made a point of not glancing in my direction. Within that deliberate avoidance, there was an obvious and unspeakable sense of unease. I could not be bothered to care about what she was doing. I did not even give her a single glance. This was because I was occupied showing Ava how to use the electronic devices we needed for class. She had absolutely no knowledge about these things. However, she was learning everything very quickly. Even though the questions she asked revealed that she lacked some very basic common knowledge, when she was the one saying them, it did not feel annoying at all. The first class of the day was English listening practice. Ava naturally took one of her earbuds and shared it with me. The sunlight was shining on her dark hair. It created a soft and beautiful glow around her. The sun was shining on her long, jet black hair. It made a soft golden halo appear around her head. Whenever she smiled at me, it felt like a gentle breeze was blowing past. My mood always seemed to brighten up a little because of it. I was about to refuse her offer, but the words got stuck in my throat. Normally, I do not participate in this kind of listening practice. I have always made it a point to skip these exercises. All the different exercises we do in class are far too exhausting for me to handle. Everyone else also prefers that I get as much rest as possible. Being able to attend classes like a normal student was something that was already a big step. Mr. Miller and my mother had debated it for a long time before they finally and reluctantly agreed to let me go. As far as I was concerned, these things were not difficult for me at all. The English conversations that sounded complex and confusing to Ava were things I could understand easily. I could repeat them back word for word without any effort. However, Ava was not aware of this. She also did not take my abilities for granted in any way. In her view, I was not just a medical patient who had to be treated with extra caution. I was also not seen as some kind of strange person who had to be flattered. She simply treated me like a normal human being, a regular guy named James. Even though she still called me James in that respectful tone, her eyes did not show any hidden motives. They only showed purity and sincerity. I was silent for a few seconds as I thought. I eventually accepted the earbud from her. Before long, the listening exercise came to an end. The teacher at the front continued with the lesson with great enthusiasm. Ava was clearly struggling to keep up with the pace. The entire lecture was being conducted in English. However, she remained very focused and earnest. She almost never stopped writing with her pen. The teacher probably noticed the new face in the classroom. He enthusiastically called on her to come up and take part in a role-play dialogue. However, the teacher was speaking far too quickly. Even after he repeated the instructions once more, Ava still did not understand many of the sentences he used. She stood up from her seat at that moment. She looked a little helpless as she stood there frozen. She had absolutely no idea what exactly the teacher wanted her to do. The entire class turned to look at her. Every eye in the room was full of surprise. But everyone was being polite, so no one spoke up to give her a hint. In the middle of that silence, a very soft and mocking laugh cut through the air like a sharp knife. That laugh had come from Sophia. She did not say a single word. However, the tiny and almost invisible curve of her lips revealed a clear sense of contempt for Ava. Her mockery was quite obvious to everyone. She raised her hand into the air. She began to speak with the teacher very fluently. "Teacher, please let me do it instead." Sophia spoke in perfect American English as she addressed him. This was the result of the fact that she had been taught by private tutors for years. "This new student cannot even understand what you're saying. The request you just made of her is far beyond what she is capable of doing." Her voice was very flat as she spoke. However, she was being extremely sarcastic. Ethan clearly sensed that something was not right. He whispered a few words into her ear, but she completely ignored what he said. Her gaze was fixed firmly on Ava. It was as if she were looking at a natural enemy. But Ava's reaction to all of this was completely different from what Sophia had expected. There was no sign of humiliation or embarrassment on her face. When it came to her own lack of knowledge, she was always very honest and unruffled. Something like this did not seem to wound her self-esteem at all. She only looked a little bit embarrassed about it. She asked me in a quiet whisper, "James, did I make you look bad in front of everyone?" I shook my head to tell her no. Then I raised my hand and stood up from my desk. "Teacher," I began speaking slowly, "I am happy to be her partner for this." The teacher's eyes immediately lit up. "Oh, that would be wonderful." Ava turned her head to look at me in surprise. I explained the situation to her in a low voice. "He is inviting you to go up and do a role-play dialogue with him." I pushed down the slight discomfort I felt in my throat. I added one more thing in a calm voice. "I will go up there with you." The teacher had been speaking too quickly for her. Ava was definitely not able to keep up. Besides, Sophia was clearly trying to embarrass her on purpose. I could not just sit there and watch it happen. The thing was, I had never before in my life volunteered to take part in this kind of classroom performance. This was truly the first time. Ava did not realize how unusual this was for me. But Sophia noticed it immediately. She was completely stunned. I do not know if she was shocked or just could not believe it. Her gaze quickly darted away from me at first. Then it landed back on me once again. In her long and slender eyes, there was a look of total disbelief. For a moment, she almost lost her composure entirely. She even stood up from her chair abruptly. She spoke to the teacher in a cold voice. "Do you not know that James's health is not suitable for this kind of activity?" The teacher just stood there, frozen. He looked both embarrassed and confused. He was new to the school this semester. He had certainly heard about my situation from other teachers. Everyone knew about my poor health. However, from his perspective, this was just a simple and small classroom activity. More importantly, I was the one who had volunteered to go up there. "James?" She looked at me with a bit of hesitation. I frowned slightly at the interruption. I completely ignored Sophia's presence. I cleared my throat and spoke. "I'm fine, let us begin." Sophia's face turned white in an instant. Her lips were trembling slightly. She looked as if she wanted to say something else, but she was stopped by her own sense of pride. She forced herself to remain silent. She had no choice but to sit back down reluctantly. The exercise for today was taken from a scene in a British drama. I made a conscious effort to speak slowly. I took the long and complicated sentences and changed them into much simpler language. Ava was able to understand everything immediately. Her spoken English was not exactly standard. However, her voice was very pleasant to hear. Her attitude was also very serious and focused. When we finished the dialogue, the teacher gave us a round of applause. Ava went back to her seat first. Then she turned her head to look at me. Her eyes were shining as if they were filled with light. She tilted her head slightly and spoke to me. James, you are really amazing. I was going to say something casual in response. It was really nothing special. But I stopped myself for a second. I changed my words. You will be able to do the same thing in the future. I made a mental note to myself. I would find her a better English tutor when we got home. The school cafeteria had a total of 5 floors. The 5th floor of the cafeteria had been specially reserved for me by my parents. Every day, there were nutritionists and chefs who prepared custom meals just for me. There were also several self-service food areas. It was essentially my own private dining and lounge area. Only a small number of students who either had a good relationship with me or whose families did business with mine were actually permitted to come up here. Ava and I were sitting by the window. A few students walked over with smiles to say hello. Their eyes were inevitably curious and lingered on Ava for several seconds. However, they were not disrespectful in any way. Ava spoke in a very quiet voice. They seemed like they were a little bit jealous of me. She looked up at me as she spoke. Her gaze was clear and very bright. There was a hint of a smile in her eyes. Is it because I am allowed to have lunch with you, James? My voice was very calm when I replied. There is nothing for them to be jealous of. Sophia never enjoyed having meals with me. It was probably because I'm a very slow eater. My diet was also very bland. Just looking at my food was enough to ruin someone's appetite. It was also because I was quite boring to be around. I did not have much to say. People eventually lost interest in talking to me. Or perhaps it was because she was always trying so hard to please me. She was constantly trying to guess my mood. She ended up sucking all the joy out of the meal. Ava seemed surprised for a moment. She stared at me for a short while. Her voice sounded very confused. She suddenly blurted out a question. Is this really not worth being jealous of? In the very next second, she realized what she had just said. Her face turned red in an instant. The girl who had been so calm in class, even when others were mocking her, was now feeling a bit flustered. It was as if she had accidentally revealed an emotion that she was keeping hidden deep inside her heart. Maybe she was just not very good at lying. She could only stammer out a broken explanation. Because being here with you, James, it makes me feel very happy. I was stunned for a long moment by her words. It took me a while to process the meaning of what she said. It was like a gentle breeze passing over a calm lake. It left behind a series of small ripples in my mind. We looked at each other in silence for a few seconds. Then we both looked down at the same time. We both continued with our meal. Suddenly, a commotion broke out at the entrance of the cafeteria. Sophia and Ethan were walking up to the 5th floor together. It seemed as though their moods had settled down quite a bit. The irritation and dissatisfaction they felt this morning seemed to have completely vanished. Sophia was looking at Ethan at that moment. Her gaze was so soft that it looked like it might melt. She spoke to him. Ethan, have you tried the seafood soup from the buffet on the 5th floor? They make a few big pots of it every day. You should try some later on. That sounds good. Ethan smiled and went along with what she was saying. However, it is enough just to taste that kind of thing. You should not eat it every single day. It is easy to become spoiled by luxury and hard to go back. To be honest, I think that sometimes these very expensive dishes are not as good as the spicy hot pot stall down the street. Sophia nodded in agreement with him. You are right. So if you do not like it here, we can just go out and eat hot pot instead. But in the very next second, they were stopped by the staff. Right at the entrance of the 5th floor, the cafeteria manager spoke to them very politely. The 5th floor is not open to the general student body. Please go and have your meal on another floor. Sophia was completely stunned. She asked a question in total disbelief. Do you have any idea who I am? The manager's smile did not change at all. Regardless of who you are, you do not have the permission to use the 5th floor. Sophia's expression immediately turned very dark. She spoke slowly, emphasizing every single word. You should be well aware of the relationship that I have with James. The manager gave her a very calm reply. Is that right? The smile on his face slowly began to disappear. His gaze swept across Ethan for a moment. As for Ethan, his facial expression was already visibly tense. I have already been given the formal notice. Your engagement to the young master has been officially ended. All the permissions you had on the fifth floor have been revoked as well. Sophia's face went completely blank for a moment. She slowly asked a question. What did you just say? The corner of Ethan's mouth curved up slightly, but he immediately hid his reaction. He pretended to have no idea what was going on. He looked towards Sophia. The manager kept using his very polite tone. You will receive the official notification very soon. I did not believe that. Sophia blurted the words out. After a short moment, she forced herself to calm down. She managed to force a small smile. I'm going to go and ask him myself. The message you received must be a mistake. The manager did not move an inch. Then please go to a different floor for your meal. While the two of them were in a standoff, the employees on the fifth floor had already started to look at Sophia with very strange expressions. One of them could not help themselves and gave a small and quiet laugh. In the end, under the pressure of the awkward situation, Ethan was the first one to give in. He forced a very strained and awkward smile. He spoke in a very low voice to her. Sophia, just forget about it. Let's go out and get hot pot instead. It is really okay. To be honest with you, the food here does not even look that good anyway. But Sophia refused to move even an inch. She had been spoiled and pampered ever since she was a child. She was treated with respect everywhere she went. How could she possibly tolerate being humiliated in public by being turned away like this? You had better think about what you are doing. She took a moment to steady her breathing. Her voice had a clear thread in it. I am a daughter of the Sterling family. You are just a petty employee who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Whether or not you are able to keep your job depends on a single word from me. The manager replied to her. Are you trying to threaten me? The smile on his face vanished completely. His voice became firm and was no longer polite. Even if you're the eldest daughter of the Sterling family, I only follow the orders of the Miller family. The crowd of people watching continued to grow. Sophia's patience was clearly running out. She gave a cold laugh and spoke. You had better understand exactly what the consequences of your actions will be. The manager's voice finally became cold as well. Young Master James has already revoked your access to this floor today. Therefore, you're not allowed to enter. While they were having their conversation, I had already made my way to the entrance. I asked him question, what kind of consequences does he need to consider? The manager turned around immediately to greet me. His voice had a slight tone of apology in it. James, he spoke to me. I am sorry for disturbing your meal. I shook my head to show it was fine. You have done a very good job. Go back to your duties now. Then I raised my eyes to look at Sophia. He is an employee of the Miller family. He is acting according to my specific instructions. Since I am the one who is barring you from the cafeteria, on what grounds do you think you can threaten his job? Sophia pressed her lips together very tightly. James, I was just angry because I thought he was lying. Her voice became a bit softer without her even realizing it. But as soon as her eyes landed on Ava, who was standing beside me, her voice became cold once again. She gave a soft and mocking scoff. She spoke with a sense of contempt that she could not hide. I have been wanting to ask you this since the morning. Why did the driver not come to pick me up? And who exactly is she? I am her fiancée. Do you not think that you owe me an explanation? Sophia. I interrupted her before she could say more. What he said was not a lie. Our engagement has come to an end. What? You do not need to come to the Miller estate anymore. My voice was flat and showed no emotion. You have gained your freedom much earlier than expected. Sophia stood there, completely frozen in place. Then she suddenly pointed her finger at Ava. Her voice suddenly became much louder. It is because of her, is it not? Just because you found a replacement for me. You think you can just throw me away so easily? James, do you even have a heart at all? She was being loud, rude, and failing to understand the situation. In the past, I always had a great deal of patience. I very rarely ever lost my temper. First, I felt that getting angry was just a waste of energy. Second, I felt that most small things were not worth worrying about at all. However, that does not mean that I will tolerate her shouting at me in front of everyone. Even if I were willing to let it go, my parents would never allow such a thing. I gave a couple of light coughs. I was just about to say something when Ava spoke before I could. James. She looked up into my eyes. Her face looked completely innocent. Her voice was very soft and gentle. Since Sophia is no longer your fiancée, then whatever I choose to do to her will not bother you, will it? I looked at her with a bit of confusion. I gave her my answer. No, I will not mind. Almost at the exact moment I finished speaking, a sharp slapping sound rang out. Ava delivered a slap that landed squarely on Sophia's face. Ava had grown up in the mountains. She was used to washing, cooking, and doing hard labor. She had studied while also taking care of her sister. Even though she looked slender and very quiet, she was actually very strong and sturdy. In just a single moment, Sophia cried out from the pain. Ethan began to shout in anger. I could hear the sounds of the crowd gasping around us. All of the noises mixed together into one. Inside my mind, the image I had of Ava being quiet and obedient was completely changed. Sophia was being pinned down by her. She could only try to raise her hands to protect herself. She looked like a gazelle caught by a cheetah. She was screaming out in total terror. On Ethan's side, he seemed to be acting very cowardly. He reached his hand out, but he did not know whether to push her or protect her. It was as if he were only pretending to help. He just wanted to look like he was protecting Sophia. Ava ended up raising her hand and slapping him too. The blow sent him stumbling back several steps. He mumbled something very weakly. If it were not for the fact that I do not hit women. The smile on Ava's face was completely gone now. Her expression had become extremely cold. She exuded an aura that made everyone feel a chill. Of course, that was not really surprising. A child who grew up in a remote mountain town, and who was born with such striking beauty, had to take care of her sick grandfather and sister. If she had not developed a tough shell, life would have torn her to pieces a long time ago. There would be nothing left of her. No matter how gentle the spring rain is, it always carries a certain chill with it. The scene that was happening before us left everyone who was there completely stunned. After Ava had completely pinned Sophia down, she did not hit her anymore. She just turned her head to look in my direction. She was obediently waiting for my next command. In the past, I have never liked the idea of using violence to resolve any problem. But for some reason, at this moment, this way of handling things did not make me feel disgusted at all. I crouched down on the floor. I spoke directly to Sophia. Who gave you the permission to talk to me in that way? I reached out and took a glass of water from nearby. I slowly poured the water over her head. Are you finally awake now? Ethan was just standing there to the side. He acted as if he were not seeing any of it. He did not even dare to take a loud breath. Sophia's clothes were completely soaked. The water was dripping down her hair and her cheeks. She looked like she had finally woken up from a dream. She finally realized exactly where she was and what a complete fool she had made of herself. Her sense of reason had returned to her, and along with it came a sense of fear. She lowered her voice and spoke to me. James, I am so sorry. I just could not understand how the engagement could be ended so suddenly. Even if you have found someone to take my place, we have been together for so many years. All of those feelings between us. I took the words she had just said and repeated them back to her. So many years of feelings. I thought about those words for a moment. My voice was as cold as a block of ice. But in your view, that was just a shackle that you could never get rid of. Since that is how you felt, why are you even talking about feelings now? Sophia's face turned white in an instant. She shook her head back and forth quickly. It is not like that at all. I never thought that way, James. I was wrong. I am apologizing to you now. The manager handed me a second glass of water. Be quiet. I interrupted her in a very low voice. Her hollow and meaningless apology was enough to make me feel sick. I raised the glass up once more. I slowly poured the water over her head. Is it because of the Sterling family that you have so much confidence? I shifted my gaze toward Ethan. You had the nerve to tell him that once I am dead, the two of you will finally be free. The air in the room seemed to freeze instantly. There was not a single sound to be heard. The look on Sophia's face could no longer be described as just being bad. It was a look of total terror and absolute despair. She looked around the room frantically. She was hoping to find someone in the crowd who could say something to defend her. However, she was unable to say anything. Ethan, on the other hand, was the first one to recover his senses. He clenched his fists tightly. He spoke to me while stammering. James, I am aware that Sophia was engaged to you. But the truth is she never loved you. You have kept her by your side for all these years. Do you not think that is enough? Now you have found someone to take her place, and you also know the entire truth now. Why can you not just let her go and live her life? I gave a small laugh. Have I not already let her go? The engagement is officially over. Your relationship and your love have absolutely nothing to do with me. Ethan was taken aback for a moment. Then he asked me another question with a guilty look. Well, you will not in the future try to come after us, will you? I stopped for a moment. I took a very serious look at both of them. I spoke the actual truth that was in my heart. Are you two really that important to me? Someone made a stifled laughing sound. Someone in the crowd could not help but laugh out loud. Right after that, there was another laugh, and then another. The giggles spread through the crowd like ripples in a pond. James would never waste any of his energy on people like you. Someone in the crowd spoke up with a taunt. Go back and act in your trashy melodrama somewhere else. No one here cares about you at all. You are both stupid and shameless, and you do not even realize it. Another person added their own comment. What is all this talk about shackles and chains? Are you completely insane? When has James ever restricted Sophia's freedom in any way? All of those disgusting little games she played, he just chose to look the other way, did he not? Now, he has simply ended the engagement. That is all there is to it. Some people just want to have everything both ways. Someone spoke with a cold laugh. If you truly wanted your freedom, you should have been honest with the Miller family. But instead, you could not bear to give up all of the money and luxury they provided for you. Now that you do not have the Miller family support, who do you think you are? Sophia really thinks she is a spoiled little princess. It is one thing that she was not punished for her mistakes, but now she has the nerve to come here and cause trouble. Do you not realize that the 5th floor is James's private dining area? It is bad enough that you come here to freeload on the food, but you even brought your boyfriend up here with you. Have you no shame at all? I really have to admire that kind of shameless courage. All these taunts were like sharp knives that cut the two of them wide open. Ethan could only keep his head down. His entire face was full of shame. As for Sophia, her face had turned a bright shade of red. She stayed there until Ava finally let go of her. She finally managed to push herself up from the floor. She opened her mouth as if to speak. She looked like she wanted to reach out and grab my sleeve. But I pushed her away immediately. Ava, I did not give them another single glance. I'm feeling a bit tired. Let us leave. There is a small park on one side of the school campus. My parents had also arranged for that area to be my private resting place. There was a small gate in the back wall. I was the only one allowed to enter or exit through it. I really enjoyed coming here during the lunch break. I could walk into the greenery all by myself. The wind would blow very gently. The sunlight here was always warm. Every leaf on the trees would tremble slightly. They all seemed to have their own rhythm. I felt as if I were breathing along with all these living things. Even when there was not a single person around me, I never felt lonely here. Ava did not know the details. Sophia had never actually stepped foot inside this secret garden. She did not ask me any questions about the things that had just happened in the cafeteria. She also did not mention Sophia at all. She mentioned Ethan even less. She simply crouched down with excitement. She pointed toward a cluster of mushrooms. This one is actually edible. She began to tell me about her life. She often went into the mountains to pick fruit and find mushrooms. She was familiar with all kinds of wild vegetables and fungi. She knew every single one of them perfectly. She told me she knew how to build a swing and weave a hammock. She wanted to make one of those here the next time we came. She also mentioned something else. There were a few small birds in the woods. She considered them to be her friends. Once, when a storm was about to hit, she had taken their nest and moved it to a much safer location. From that day forward, those little birds would often come to find her and play. I just sat there and listened to her quietly. When she was finished with her stories, Ava tilted her head and looked at me. James, let's make a kite together. We can fly it together. She added a serious thought to her suggestion. I promise that I will fly the kite very high up. Then you could just stay right here and hold on to the string. The topic of the conversation had changed very suddenly. However, I only gave her a faint smile. Okay, she went on with her ideas. Next time, I will bring a tablecloth with me. We can have a picnic here in the park. After we have finished eating, you can lie down for a little while. I will sit beside you and talk with you. If you find that you are tired, then I will push you back home." The scene that she was describing sounded very appealing to me. I thought about what she said for a moment. I could not help but give a gentle smile. In the end, I spoke to her slowly. Okay, words like next time or in the future were terms that felt very distant to me. But I did not want to ruin her enthusiasm. A person who has to face the reality of death every day has no right to let down someone who is being truly kind to him. Ava. I called her name once. I spoke to her very seriously. In the future, you will be able to make your own friends. You will go to a very good university. You will find yourself a great job. You will fall in love and get married. You will live exactly the life that you want. Both of us were well aware of the truth. We knew when that future would actually begin for her. Ava remained silent for several seconds. Then, she suddenly offered me an apology. "James, I am sorry." I frowned slightly at her apology. For what reason? She spoke to me. Even if you're going to live a very long life, if you always push things off until the future, you will definitely end up regretting it. She spoke with a smile on her face. "Therefore, let us come here for our picnic tomorrow." She raised her eyes to look at me. Her face was full of smiles. However, her eyes looked like a sun shower on a rainy day. They were bright, yet they seemed to be holding back tears. I gave her the same answer as before. "Okay." She asked me another question. "James, are you this kind to every person you meet? Is this what you call being kind?" I asked her. "Yes, it is." She tilted her head to the side. She quietly mumbled something to herself. "Ava," I asked her a question. "Were you angry at Sophia and Ethan just now?" "Yes," she said while nodding her head. "They were very disrespectful to you, and their apology was not sincere at all. But when they were the ones humiliating her, she did not seem to be angry at all. Even when Sophia was being mocked by everyone in public, she did not seem to care in the slightest." I asked her another question. "When you're doing your work, are you always this dedicated to it?" At least in terms of her attitude, and when it came to providing comfort, she was far better than Sophia's hollow and fake behavior. She stopped for a moment. She shook her head. Her voice was very quiet. "No, I'm only like this with you, James. If any other person had said that to me, I probably would have laughed. But since it was coming from her, it felt very sincere. It sounded like the absolute truth." I asked her because I was confused. "Why is that?" I could not see any selfishness in her at all. She did not seem to have any hidden motives. Even though the Miller family had given her a great deal, that kind of sincerity is not something that money can buy. "It is because you have forgotten about me." She spoke in a very soft whisper. "The truth is that a long, long time ago, we have already met each other." Her words really gave me a surprise. But Ava seemed to realize that she had said too much. She immediately changed the subject of our conversation. I should have hit them even harder than I did just now. If I had pressed her for more details at that moment, she certainly would have told me everything. However, I chose not to ask. Instead, I just went along with what she was saying. There are many ways to make someone feel pain in this world. It goes far beyond just giving them a slap. My very existence made Ethan and Sophia look like tragic lovers separated by fate. That was why Sophia refused to be honest with me. And Ethan chose to blame everything on her supposed lack of control over the situation. But there was no such thing as having no choice. It was all just about scheming and greed in the end. My parents naturally found out about the situation as well. They learned everything about Sophia and Ethan. Just like I did, they were not going to personally punish those two young people. Instead, they chose to handle it decisively by cutting off all ties with them. They brought an end to all of the support they had previously given the Sterling family. They also made a public announcement to everyone. The business partnership between the two families was officially over. At the school, Sophia and Ethan were also moved to different floors away from me. My class was a very special one after all. It was entirely funded and sponsored by the Miller family. We were able to enjoy the very best teaching resources and equipment available. Professors from the most prestigious universities came to give lectures to us on a regular basis. Every year, there were also free spots available for students to study abroad in exchange programs. There were also many opportunities during the various school events to meet with the business partners of the Miller family. All of these things were things that many families could only dream of having for their children. Now, Sophia and Ethan were completely removed from our presence. The Miller family froze all of the credit cards they had given to Sophia. Every single one of them was frozen. Her ability to spend money at any Miller-owned business was officially taken away from her. Over the last several years, all of the resources she had relied on from the Miller family were completely canceled. The newspapers and media that once praised her so highly suddenly became very cold toward her. The students who used to flatter her and greet her with happy smiles changed their attitudes as well. No one wanted to be around her anymore. No one looked at her as someone who was worth being jealous of. The constant flow of gifts from the Miller family, including the luxury items like designer bags and jewelry, all came to a sudden stop. All of these changes happened almost overnight. And along with all of that, her status as James's fiancée completely disappeared. Everything that was happening turned Sophia's entire world upside down. I have no idea what was going through her mind at that specific time. She no longer had any opportunity to see me in person. The only thing she could do was start sending me one frantic message after another. In the beginning, she did not even believe it was real. James, please, can you not end our engagement? Why did the Miller family have to release that kind of statement? My whole family is absolutely furious right now. James, was the card you gave me frozen by any chance? I'm having a really bad day today. I wanted to go and get some food at the Violet, but they told me they did not have any tables for me. You told me before that you love that place. You even booked a private room, just for me. You said I could go there whenever I wanted. I really do not want to fight with you like this. Have you forgotten that our destinies are perfectly matched? We were meant to be together forever. Please stop being angry with me, okay? Your health should be the most important thing of all. As time went on, her messages began to sound more panicked. Do you really not want to be with me anymore? I went to the Miller house to look for you today, but they just threw me out of the house. Please, just let me see you for a minute. If you're doing this because of Ethan, then you should know that we have already broken up. He is even transferred to a different school now. After I spent some time with him, I realized that I had been acting so stupidly. I never really had any feelings for him at all. He was the one who was being manipulative. Even though he knew I was your fiancé, he still tried to be so kind and caring toward me. I was just fooled by all of his sweet words. I promise that I will never see him again in my life. James, I have done a lot of thinking lately. I was being very immature in the past. Can we please just go back to the way things were? You were always so good and kind to me. I really want to make it up to you now. In the end, she began to beg me for mercy. She started sending me one voice message after another. Her voice sounded very hoarse from all the crying. Even if you already have Ava with you now, can I not stay with you as well? I will not try to take anything away from her. I just want you to let me stay by your side. I am begging you to see me just once. I miss you so much right now. I really, really miss you. I'm not doing well at all without you. I keep having dreams about the times we sat together in the yard and read. I want so badly to go back to that life. Please, just keep me locked by your side. I do not care about having my freedom anymore. I just want to be right there next to you. I eventually blocked her number and her accounts. She was no longer able to get in touch with me. All she could do was go on to social media. She started posting things to express her regret. I would occasionally see glimpses of her online. She and Ethan were in the comment sections swearing at each other and arguing publicly. There was always a crowd of people watching them. People were making things worse just to see the drama. I took just a couple of quick looks at it. Then I just scrolled past and ignored the whole thing. I had no desire at all to become the subject of other people's gossip. After a little while had passed, both of their social media accounts were suspended for their behavior. Then they just completely disappeared from the internet. From that moment on, it was as if they had both been completely erased from the digital world. I believe that I was having a dream. I dreamed about the time when I was in the hospital. Right there on the windowsill of my room, I found a small paper airplane. There were some crooked words written on it. I want to get better. I want to eat a watermelon-flavored lollipop. It was such a simple and ordinary wish. Getting better from my illness was not easy, but giving a piece of candy to a child was a very easy thing for me to do. So on that day, I gave an order to the butler. I told him to find all the kids in the hospital who could eat candy and give each of them a big handful of lollipops. We gave out watermelon, grape, and orange flavors. After that, I began to receive even more paper airplanes. One of the children probably thought that I was some kind of fairy. He wrote with a great deal of excitement about how good the lollipops had tasted. While he was making new wishes, he was also busy praising me as the most powerful fairy in the whole world. All of their wishes were very simple things. Sometimes they just wanted to see some fireworks. Sometimes they wanted to draw a nice picture. Sometimes they wanted to grow a flower in a pot. So I sent all of those little patients spinning tops and boxes of oil pastels. I also sent them several bouquets of flowers. I never told a single person about what I was doing. I never said that I was the one reading the paper airplanes. I also never tried to find out who exactly was throwing the airplanes out of the windows. Later on, I noticed something new on the paper airplanes. A different kind of handwriting had appeared. It was very neat and very beautiful handwriting. Each message was only a few sentences long. Please get well soon. Please live a long life. I hope everything goes well for you. At that time, I believed that those were the parents of the children making wishes on their behalf. Unfortunately, life and death are not in our hands. A blessing of that kind was not something I could actually make come true. Before I left that hospital to go home, I donated a very large sum of money. It was for the medical treatment fund. Any patient who met the requirements was able to apply for help from the fund. While I was on the first floor, I left behind one final paper airplane. I wrote just one single sentence on it. I hope all of you get well. Goodbye. But right as I was getting into the car, I thought that I heard something. There were hurried footsteps coming from behind me. I turned my head to take a quick look. I saw a young girl rushing out from the hospital entrance. I did not see her face clearly at that moment. Or perhaps it is just that so many years have passed. All of my memories have become blurred together. A gentle breeze brushed against my cheeks. I opened my eyes in a half-awake state. High above me, a kite was floating in the sky. Moving with the wind was a stretch of green tree shadows swaying back and forth. The girl who was sitting beside me was as quiet as if we were back in that hospital room. She was drawing with a box of oil pastels I recognized. Over all these years, how many boxes of those had I given away? I wondered why the one she was holding still looked as if it had just been opened for the first time. She turned her head to look at me. That face of hers slowly began to match the face that I'd seen in my dream. I asked her a question. Ava, on those paper airplanes all those years ago, were you making wishes on behalf of your sister to me? She was stunned for a brief moment. When she raised her eyes to look at me again, her clean and bright eyes were full of the beauty of a midsummer day. The sunlight seemed to be dancing in her eyes. Eventually, her eyes crinkled into a soft smile. She spoke to me in a very low voice. No, that was not it. Then she added one more thing, even more quietly. I was actually praying for you. The day the Sterling family forced Sophia to come and apologize, I was sitting in the front yard near the front gate. I was looking through Ava's latest report card. She had made several promises to me before. She said she would prepare a picnic for us. She said she would make a kite that could fly very high. She said she would be the top student, so I would be proud. She had accomplished every single one of those things. I was still trying to decide how to praise her properly when a loud argument started at the gate. After they lost the protection and support of the Miller family, the Sterling family's financial situation had collapsed. Recently, they had been reduced to a small company earning only a few $100,000 a year. They were just barely able to live a decent life, but compared to the days when they were incredibly wealthy, it was not comparable at all. Once a person has experienced extreme luxury, force them to return to a frugal life. That kind of change is very difficult to accept. Losing every single thing that they once possessed is undoubtedly one of the most painful things. That was true for the Sterling family, and it was also true for Sophia. So even though they knew I had no interest in seeing her, they still came to the house to beg for mercy. The entire family was standing in a line at the door. Sophia was kneeling on the ground and begging for my forgiveness. Her face was completely full of desperation and pleading. In the last several months, this was the very first time I'd seen her. She looked like she was in a terrible state. She was haggard, and her eyes were bright red. As soon as she caught sight of me, her eyes immediately lit up with hope. Then she began to crawl toward me on her knees. That posture of urgent and desperate begging was so humble it was almost pitiable. All of the pride and coldness she used to have had completely disappeared without a trace. The noble and refined aura that she used to carry around with her seemed to be nothing more than a puff of smoke at this point. Once the title of James's fiancée was taken away, all of the prosperity that had surrounded her completely collapsed. The kind of life she used to live was much better than what most people have. Even so, she was simply unable to accept the reality of how far she had fallen. At this moment, she was truly and completely regretful. She kept calling my name over and over again. James. But I chose to shift my gaze to the middle-aged man leading the Sterling family. I spoke to him in a cold voice. Do not ever show your face to me again. The expressions on the faces of the Sterling family all froze at that exact moment. Sophia also sat there completely stunned. Her tears continued to fall uncontrollably. I have no intention of targeting the Sterling family. I continued speaking, but if you persist in coming here and harassing me, you will have to bear the consequences. My facial expression and my gaze were enough to show that I was not making idle threats. The head of the Sterling family looked as if he had just remembered something important. He was instantly terrified on the spot. His lips were trembling as he spoke. He nodded his head over and over again in agreement. He did not say another single word. He grabbed Sophia and dragged her out of the gate. Sophia's voice was hoarse as she screamed, James, I am so sorry. James, please do not leave me behind. She said it over and over again. Her voice was so loud and real, it was almost deafening. Finally, her voice completely disappeared as they left the estate. As for me, I only had eyes for Ava. This was because I had finally decided on how I wanted to praise her. Look up at me. She followed my instruction and looked up at me. Those clear eyes of hers probably still did not quite understand what I was planning to do next. I gently reached out and touched her cheek. I leaned my body down toward her a bit. The very second that our eyes met, her face turned bright red. She pursed her lips and spoke in a quiet voice. James, yes. She added one more thing shyly. In the future, if you want to give me praise, her voice sounded a little bit embarrassed. Can you always do it like this? Even though that kind of thing was hard to say, she would never tell me a lie. She admitted it in a very low voice. I like it very much. I turned my eyes away from her. I could feel that my fingertips were becoming quite hot. Okay, I told her. On the day Ava was accepted into the country's top medical school, I went to the hospital with my parents to have a complete physical examination. When the results of the checkup finally came out, everyone in the family cheered with joy. My medical condition had not gotten any worse. In fact, it had actually started to show improvement. Perhaps the new medication was more effective. Perhaps it was because I started cooperating more with the treatment. My overall mood had also improved quite a bit. It could have been a result of the incredible skills of my doctors. Or perhaps there was some other reason for it. Oh, my son. My mother was wiping the tears from her eyes. Her voice was almost completely choked with emotion. I'm just so happy right now. My father turned his back to us for a moment. On his thin and gaunt cheeks, there was a rare and slight flush of red. His eyes were also looking quite red. I asked a question in a bit of a daze. Does this actually mean that I can stay with you for a while longer? They could not hold their feelings in any longer. They both burst into tears right then and there. Between different people, can there really be such a thing as compatible destinies? My father and mother did not know the answer. However, during that year, they had traveled to Clearwater to help build a new school there. Right there on a young girl's windowsill, they had spotted a paper airplane. The handwriting on it was incredibly familiar. It was the handwriting of their own son. The face of the girl also seemed very familiar to them. It felt as if she was the one who had tried to save her sick younger sister. She had applied for the assistance from a charity fund they had set up at the hospital. The master who was traveling with them spoke a sentence in a very low voice. This girl named Ava, her destiny has once undergone a massive reversal. She was originally destined to lead a life of loneliness and many disasters. However, because she encountered her benefactor, her luck has turned from bad to good. Now her destiny is said to have reached a state of perfect compatibility with James. This is a connection that is written in the stars. Can human beings really have this kind of fated and predestined bond? My parents never used to believe in such things, but my illness forced them to pray to every single god in the heavens. They began to grasp at every single clue that could explain cause and effect. Even the intangible concept of destiny was something they chose to believe in. And so, they brought Ava into the Miller family home. They asked her a question. What is it that you want? She only smiled and gave them her answer. I have already given my wish to the little angel. The little angel who lived on the rooftop of the hospital was how her younger sister described the all-powerful being. She had sent him a countless number of paper airplanes. She had once been in the corner of the corridor and caught a glimpse of him from a distance. But she never dared to actually approach him, even if it was just to say thank you to him. She had prayed for him thousands of times over the years. She only hoped that he would be able to live a little longer. I had another dream recently. When I woke up, Ava was pushing my wheelchair for me. I suddenly had a great desire to climb a mountain and see the sun rise. In truth, it was just a small hill that was not very high. It was the kind of hill where you could take a cable car to the top. However, I wanted to try and climb it by myself. Of course, it was not long before I became exhausted. But the sunrise from the top of the mountain was absolutely beautiful. The medical team that was traveling with us used a Polaroid camera to take a photo of me and Ava. They took a photo of the two of us together. She took that photograph and carefully placed it inside her little notebook. It was the same notebook that was full of notes about me. I asked her a question. Can I take a look at it? She was surprised for a second. She looked a little bit flustered. Her eyes crinkled. The corners of her eyes tilted up again. If this had happened in the past, I probably would have said it was fine and dropped it. But for some reason, the longer I spent time with her, the more I enjoyed teasing her. I did not say anything at all. I just sat there and watched her quietly. Ava pursed her lips for a moment. In the end, she finally handed the notebook over to me. The wind blew the slightly yellowed pages open. On every single page, the same sentence was written. James, I hope that you live a very long life. On the very first page, there was also a drawing of a little person smiling. There was a date written next to the drawing. It was the date of her very first time stepping foot inside the Miller family home. She had written a note. Today, the little angel gave me a smile, and it felt as if spring had arrived early. True destiny is not about someone fixing your flaws, but about someone seeing the pure light within you even at your absolute worst. You do not need to rush your recovery, because spring does not just appear one morning. It slowly seeps in through countless silent winter days. What we really need is not to be saved by someone else, but to simply be seen and understood. And the person who will truly see you might already be on their way, holding a paper airplane that has your name written on it.